Hi and welcome. Welcome to the next session of CareerScale. CareerScale IT Consulting is focused on training and consulting and co-product development based out of India. And I am Harinath. So today's topic is to discuss about REST services, the basic fundamentals behind it, and then how do we build REST services with Spring MVC in the easier way, and it will be very flexible. So the agenda is that basically, let me start with the prerequisites that I require, for you to follow this session is that you need to have at least Eclipse Juno or maybe even earlier versions of Eclipse, but with SVN and Maven plugins installed. And then we're going to discuss a little bit about how web works, HTTP protocol, and then we will move on to the REST concepts and demo. So how really web works? Web or World Wide Web is basically it is based on HTTP protocol. HTTP stands for Hypertext Transfer Protocol. So it is a client server mechanism where your browser is the client for you, and server can be built on any technology, but browser is independent of those server based technologies. And browser and the server, they talk in HTTP language. So when you talk about HTTP language, basically there are few important methods or verbs associated with HTTP protocol, right? HTTP also, we discuss about HTML, hypertext markup language as well. That actually, like, browser renders that, server sends the text data to browser, but browser renders in a useful, interesting manner as per HTML. But that is not the scope of this session. So basically, I'm trying to look at, on the HTTP methods. What are the method that you have in HTTP protocol? As per HTTP protocol, we can actually get something, basically, when you hit a URL, say google.com, then you are going to get the home page. But the request, such as the request method, is get. Okay. And you're trying to register in a website. You're trying to register in a website. That means that you're trying to post. Okay. And uh, get and post are the most commonly used HTTP methods. So far, all other methods are concerned, only these two things are highly used. But actually, their meaning, let us look at their meaning. So get, we looked at. Post, we looked at. The put means that replacing a content, replacing the content. Say, suppose you are registering in a website, right? Or you are creating an employee. Okay. And that means that you are posting employee data, that you are creating an employee. Suppose if you have to replace that complete entire data of this employee with something else, then use put. Or you have to modify only certain attributes of an employee, then use patch. Or the employee has resigned, you don't want him to be in the database, delete it. So delete is the method to delete a particular resource, right? So this is a standard notation, or as per the HTTP protocol, these are the methods that are available, right? Now let us look at other important aspect of HTTP is that the response codes that server generates. So various HTTP response code that we have are actually, it starts with, I mean, you have one access as well, but let us look at 200 onwards. So 2xs stands for success. Basically, 200 is okay. 201 means created. 202 means accepted. 203 means non-authoritative to information. This is added with 1.1 of HTTP protocol. 204 no content. 205 reset content. 206 partial content. Now 3xs. So basically, this means that client must take some additional action to complete the request, and most often it may be just enabling your browser to handle these things automatically. Okay. 300 means multiple choices. 301 moved permanently. 302 found. 304 not modified. 305 use proxy. 306 switch proxy. 307 temporary redirect, 308 permanent redirect. Okay, so let's move on to the 400 series. 400 series are client errors. Okay, so this is basically like, intended for cases where the input is given wrong by the end user or the client. So 400 bad request, 401 unauthorized, 402 payment required, 403 forbidden, 404 not found, like this. You have we have so many other statuses as well, but I try to like uh, bring in only the one that actually can fit into a page. Similarly, we have 500 series errors. They are server errors, right? So 500, basic 500 means that internal server error. 501 means not implemented. 502 bad gateway. 503 service unavailable. 504 gateway timeout. Likewise, we have other statuses as well. We might have actually, like, you might have noticed 503 or maybe 500. This generally, like, commonly, like, you tend to see these kind of errors, right? So this is basically like this. When 500 happen, that means that there is a problem on the server side, right? And when there is a 400 series, means that there is a problem on the client side. 300 means that there is something, some change. So this is about all about redirection, how we have to redirect, where to redirect, kind of thing. Okay, 200 series is generally for success. So this is a quick review of what HTTP status codes we have. And also, like, just to refresh, we have HTTP methods: get, post, put, patch, delete. So let's look at, so this is about fundamentally, like, how, when the basics, very basics of HTTP and HTTP response codes. Now let us look at REST. The REST is stands for representational state transfer, which is actually like, um, which has been there in the place. It started with one person, with a project PhD thesis, and later on certain reference implementation, and then it has been accepted everywhere, and you have a lot of implementations for REST support. Okay, REST is basically about looking at your resources, or like, if you look at, at any high level application, or any application at any level, it is all about CRUD operations: create, retrieve, update, delete of some data or the other, some entity or the other, right? So if and now we looked at the HTTP method that are available: get, post, put, patch, delete, right? So now trying to use the HTTP standard methods, right, and applying that to individual entities, and trying to sort out, provide a simpler solution for your problem, or the project or product that is in your hand. Now that is nothing but the rest. You can actually achieve that with rest. And rest is often described as a architectural style. It is architectural style, it is not a framework. If you talk about Spring Framework, stats, or something else, they are frameworks, they are kind of technology tools for you. Whereas REST is not a framework of that kind. It is more of a architectural style. How you design your application, how you develop, or like, basically like, if you design, if your architect is good, if you design proper solution for, and further using REST, then implementation will be kind of straightforward. Okay, so what are the things that are very important when you're talking about REST? Resources means that the problem domain that you are working with, you need to identify all the resources that are applicable to you, or as per the requirements, right? And then design, or plan your URLs. I'll discuss about the URLs going forward in the while discussing the demo. But there is a high degree of you know um, complete solution is around the URLs, how you're designing your URL. So the architect actually has to have to pay too much attention into this particular aspect, right? and then you farm some URL, you have some resources at your end, and what you need to do is do something on top of these resources. So use simple operations, HTTP methods like get, post, put, right? So patch, delete, like this. Use the standard methods and develop your application functionality. As simple as that. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is that going to showcase a demo application built with Spring MVC. Okay, I'm going to use couple of entities. Okay, so this is very miniature version, so don't expect a complex solution here. Then now, looking at the entities that are part of this demo are department and employees. Simple entities. Department has ID and name, and employee has ID, first name, last name. Okay, so let me move on to the demo. You find a lot of literature if you are only looking at the rest related theory concepts. You find a lot of literature. This is nothing new. This has been there since many years, and many people or many companies have been trying to build rest based services because they are kind of simple, straightforward, protocol, or like technology agnostic and standard oriented, right? So essentially, like when what I did is, now moving on to the demo, what I did is that I created a Maven application. I used, I think, a Maven R step 5 or 25. Just look at this Maven R step list when you're creating. What I do is that mvn space archetype colon generate. I think this is the command. Once I give this, it's going to show you a list of all the possible project templates or Maven types or archetypes, and you can pick any of the number there, right? So that is how I picked up a simple Spring MVC based application and created that. Then on top of it, I started adding my logic for REST services. So this is Maven application, and this is the pom.xml. So it is kind of simple. What I hardly have is a Spring framework, because it heavily dependent. It is used on based on Spring MVC. So I'm going to have Spring MVC related stuff, and then also some of the other things like code generation library, CGLib, and JSON for JSON to JSON object serialization, and during the application development time, not at the runtime, but during development, you need to have some servlet API, right? And JSP API. So I added a couple of additional dependencies as well. And now, also, like I configured a Maven plugin for Tomcat. So once, what I do actually is that I'm going to run Tomcat 7 colon run command. Okay, let me show you that. Yeah, this is the command. Okay, this is the goal that we need to run on Maven. Okay, so you can run that pretty much from your console or command prompt, right? Or use Eclipse to help you with that. Okay, so this application primarily is highly annotation driven. So let me start with a standard configuration file here. So what I am doing is that this is for Spring MVC. Okay, and I'm trying to build, actually, like trying to use an application dot properties that is mentioned here. So I'm actually, like property placeholder configurer is scheduled, right, or configured, right? And then I have the model objects, say all the constants try to place in one single file. Then I have department, I have employee, I have error code, and HTTP status code. So these are the modal object that I have. Basically like constants is not really a modal object, rather it is um, holder for, it's not a bean such as, but it is a just a container for lot of constants for the application. Okay, so department, look at this: id and name, employee, id, first name, last name. I went through with simple steps here, so nothing major complex stuff. So I did not try to increase the employee attributes or something like that to make it realistic, but rather than that, my option is I mean towards a simplistic solution, so that it is very easy to explain and easy to learn or follow, right? So what basically what really it is like, this particular controller, home controller. Okay, let us look at, this is how the spring stuff works. Okay, what I'll essentially have is at the rate controller. Okay, done. So then what should I be doing extra? So if I want to have some property file having certain properties defined and I want to access them at runtime, you can actually use like this option. Okay, you can have declare a private element with a with an annotation here, the at the rate value, and this is going to read from the property file application dot properties. Look at this: standard response time equal to 100. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is that, I also used JSON library just to convert the Java, plain text to a JSON object. JSON is nothing but JavaScript object notation, right? So what I'm going to do is that, this method is important here: public at the rate response body string post employee, and then there is also a get employee method as well. So let's look at this particular thing. What are the things that are important here is the url pattern. The url pattern, let us look at this. So here what I'm saying is request mapping value equal to department slash department id slash employee slash employee id. Okay, now so any URL, if you look at the curly bracket ones at runtime, there will be some value there. Okay. So basically it means a department slash maybe one, two, or something like that, slash employee slash and employee ID. So essentially this is how you will be defining your business domain. Okay. You need to identify the atomic objects or entities and try to build them services like this. Okay, so how do I really read this value? Okay, how do I really read this value? Let us look at the post method as well. Okay, so here you have only one variable, department id, followed by employee, but then you user will be submitting when you say post, right? You're going to submit the data about the user to be created. So from you can build, your own web front end, or maybe you can use some rest client. Okay, so essentially like, um, uh, this url path variables, you can spring MVC nicely supports like this kind of option, where you actually like get that value comes to you and sits into this value department id, right? And then the request body, because you're going to submit some data, so request body should be right now, for now, should be in the JSON format. Okay, should be in the JSON format. And what we are going to do is that, the request, when you send the request in a JSON format, it is going to be received as this particular element string employee data. So and then what I'll do is that from the request I try to generate that equivalent Java object using JSON, and then do some additional validations that like business logic, and end of the um, one moment. Yeah, let me refresh myself on this. So you can use HTTP methods and build the logic around this. Okay, but JSON, I get that, the object, and then you try to do validation, you try to do the validation, and then use send some response back to the browser, okay, or to the user application that is going to consume this service, okay. So essentially here, the important thing that I really wanted to tell you is that, this is how you can resolve the path variables. So your URL is going to be here, this value will be actual department ID will be there. Now let us look at this other thing, the get URL. So here you have department ID and employee ID. So these values are going to be nicely captured into some other method level variables here, okay. And basically this is how you will be doing it, okay. In case of post, you are going to get that whatever request data is there, read that and process it into a JSON object and then handle it, right. So this is basically like a simple REST service, okay. And in terms of advantages that you get when you do with REST is that, um, other alternative for integration perspective is generally web service. Web service is a soap over HTTP, and that comes with a lot of extra baggage. So in case of REST, it is more an architectural style, as I mentioned earlier, and not rather, a framework. So you don't need any additional support such as using regular programming. You should be able to build REST services, whereas web services front, you need additional tools, frameworks, and it is more heavy, okay. So let me go back, and do this demo. So this is going to be the URL, and what I am getting is there is an error. There is an error. Let me check. Mm, Request method get is okay, not supported. That is fine. Okay, so the requested method get is not supported. That is good. So because I was actually trying to hit this URL, okay, and ideally I should be sending a post request. Okay, let us look at this. Okay, post request. I'm sending that, user data in JSON format. ID, first name, last name, right? Simple three properties. Nothing great there. Then I'm sending this request. Let me do this. Okay. Uh, okay. I have some breakpoint here. I'm going to just click it next, and invalid department ID is this. One moment, let me remove all breakpoints. Okay, so invalid department ID. Okay, I think I added some default validation in the code. Let me go back and look at this. So sorry about this window. So what I was doing here is that to just do some validation. Okay, max department ID is going to be 100, so more than 100. That is the reason I was getting this error. So what I can do is that, say 50, okay, and then you post this employee data. So 50 is what? Department ID. Now it says that no content, and then I also added a HTTP header, a request header, header on the response called, state result, and the result is success. Okay, this is the simplest form of posting some data into REST. Now, one sec. This is going to be get. Sorry, I need to get the employee details. So I just need to switch between. Otherwise, the particular method is post is not supported for this pattern, right? Let me look at this. What I'm trying to do is that, just now I have added with one URL that, a new employee, and now I'm trying to get the particular employee data back. So you see here, This is the response. I could pretty much see the data here. So this is how REST services work. Okay, and how I build this REST services, it is kind of straightforward. Spring MVC, if you are going to use Spring MVC, it is by default you have the support for it. You have the support for it. And going forward with Java EE 7, that is coming in few months from now, we are going to have support for JSON, support for REST services, completely with annotation driven. All the proven things that are out there in the third-party charts, third-party modules are going to be, at least some of them are going to be part of standard Java EE stack. Okay, so how can you get the code? So the code is available on my website on Google Code. Okay, so what I'm going to show you is I'm going to have see, this is where I have this code. Whatever code actually I have done the demo just now. You can access from my code at google.com/p/cs hyphen ocms and while accessing the code. Okay, so this is how you can access, or you can actually like brief introduction about REST service and how do we build a REST service, and how do we run, how do we verify, right, about REST services. The primary advantages with REST services um, are with to do with the simplified solutions, and you don't need to have extra knowledge of some other protocols which is required in case of soap. You don't need too many tools. With the simple tools you can do it. It is more search engine optimized format, you know and it's like but you need to be a bit smart enough on how to identify your entities or resources, and how do you form your urls. That is something that your architect should work on. Okay, so um, that's all I have from this session. If you would like to have leave a feedback to me, you can actually always mail to me at info@careerscale.in. Info@careerscale.in. Okay, let me leave the mail ID here. Ian. Okay, I'll be happy to receive your feedback. And also, like, if you would like to have more sessions on specific topics or any other additional topics, please do let me know. I'll be very happy to help you out. Please do watch our other videos, and help us improve the quality of our trainings. Right, that will be great help from your side. Okay, so thank you so much. Thank you for watching this, and I hope you enjoyed and you learned something new today.